October 29th, 2020, Thursday night in Charlotte. And for Curtis Samuel, this is one of those strange games where the individual performance looks a whole lot better when you isolate it from everything that happened around it. Because Samuel is going to score twice. He's going to score two different ways. And for a little while, he's going to look like the most dangerous player on the field. And Carolina is going to spend most of the night trying to survive. This is Panther 11. And this is Curtis Samuel against the Atlanta Falcons. The 2020 Panthers were starting over without ever officially calling it a rebuild. Ron Rivera was gone, Cam Newton's gone, Luke Kuechly retired, Matt Rhule come from Baylor to take over as head coach. Joe Brady's running the offense, Teddy Bridgewater's the quarterback, and almost everywhere you looked, there's somebody learning a brand new job. The preseason expectations reflected that. Carolina's over-under was 5.5. But 7 games into the season, they were 3-4. And they'd already been more interesting than anybody expected. They started 0-2, and then they won 3 straight over the Chargers, Cardinals, and these same Atlanta Falcons. Then reality pushed back. Chicago beat them 23-16. New Orleans beat them 27-24. So Carolina came into Thursday night football at 3-4 with a very obvious opportunity sitting in front of them. Win this game and get back to 4-4. Sweep Atlanta for the first time since 2013 and reach the halfway point, still hanging around the NFC playoff conversation. And they'd already beaten the Falcons once. Just 18 days earlier, Carolina went to Atlanta and won 23-16. Bridgewater threw for 313 yards. Mike Davis produced 149 yards from scrimmage. And Curtis Samuel had also been one of the stars that day. Christian McCaffrey still unavailable. He'd suffered through a high ankle sprain in week 2. And although Carolina has designated him to return from injured reserve that week, he wasn't ready by Thursday night. That meant Mike Davis remained the primary running back. But it also meant Samuel continued to occupy this fascinating hybrid role in Joe Brady's offense. Receiver, running back, hello Joaquin, motion guy, third down answer. And that last part matters because coming into this game, Samuel had been targeted 14 times on third down during that season. Bridgewater completed all 14 of 14. Samuel's 12 third down conversions were the most amongst all NFL wide receivers. So if you're watching Carolina that night and wondering who Teddy Bridgewater trusted when the offense had to move the chains, the answer wasn't just DJ Moore, and it wasn't Robbie Anderson. Sometimes it was Curtis Samuel. And Atlanta's situation was different. The Falcons were 1-6, and by October, their season felt like an ongoing experiment in discovering brand new ways to lose football games. They blew huge leads against Dallas and Chicago. Then Carolina beat them in week 5, and the next day, Atlanta fired head coach Dan Quinn and GM Thomas Dimitroff. Raheem Morris took over as interim coach. Atlanta immediately turned around and smacked Minnesota. Then, another nightmare against Detroit. Todd Gurley accidentally scored a touchdown when Atlanta would have been better off stopping short of the goal line and killing the clock. Matthew Stafford got the ball back, drove Detroit downfield, and the Lions won on the last play. So Atlanta arrived in Charlotte at 1-6, and with a bizarrely specific requirement. Finish. Just finish. Just finish 1. So the Falcons were 2-point underdogs. The projected total was 51.5. So there's an expectation we might get some points. And there were good reasons for it. Atlanta was 6th in the NFL in total offense. Julio Jones missed the first Panthers-Falcons game with a hamstring injury, but he was back. Calvin Ridley was emerging as one of the best young receivers in the league. Todd Gurley had 7 rushing touchdowns in 7 games. And Carolina's young secondary was already beat up. So there's a few things everybody's watching. Could Carolina survive Jones and Ridley? Could Atlanta finish a close game? Could Mike Davis replicate what he'd done against the Falcons 3 weeks earlier? And with Christian McCaffrey still unavailable, how much would Carolina manufacture for Curtis Samuel? The remnants of Tropical Storm Zeta had left the field still kind of wet, and only 5,240 people were there in Bank of America Stadium because of restrictions due to COVID. Hi, Jared. Hi, Whoa 808. On Atlanta's first 2 offensive snaps, Matt Ryan threw to Julio Jones, 24 yards, then 28 yards. Welcome back. Atlanta marched 72 yards before Carolina stopped the Falcons near the goal line, and that forced Young Ho Koo to kick a 20-yard field goal. 3-0 Atlanta. Carolina answered right away. Bridgewater moved the Panthers 75 yards in just 6 plays. And when they reached the Atlanta 12, Samuel lined up as a running back, not motioning through the backfield, not taking a gadget flip. He actually lined up behind the quarterback, and Bridgewater turned around and handed it to him. Samuel went straight at the middle, touchdown. 7-3 Atlanta, his second rushing touchdown in 2 weeks. Atlanta answered with another long drive, but again, Carolina stiffened near the goal line. Koo kicked from 37, 7-6. So early in the second quarter, Brian Burns pressured Matt Ryan. Ryan tried to find Calvin Ridley along the sideline there, and Dante Jackson picked him off. Carolina took over at the Atlanta 40. Now, watch Samuel. 3rd and 2. Bridgewater gives him a short swing pass, 3 yards. First down. Mr. Third Down again. Hello, Yano. 857. Next up, Carolina gets cute. Bridgewater hands to Mike Davis. Davis turns around and pitches it back. Flea flicker. Samuel streaking downfield. Bridgewater puts it over the defense. Ricardo Allen gets a fingertip on it, but not enough. Samuel catches it in stride, 29 yards, touchdown. Carolina 14, Atlanta 6. Curtis Samuel steps the football 3 times, and he has 2 touchdowns. For a moment, this looks like the point where Carolina might take control of the game. Yeah, but it isn't. Atlanta turns around with a 10-play, 75-yard drive. Ridley injured his ankle during the possession, and he doesn't return. But Ryan kept moving the Falcons. So on 3rd down from the Carolina 13, the Panthers got some pressure. Ryan escaped. Tony Pride Jr. slipped trying to recover. And Matt Ryan, who's never for a minute been confused for Michael Vick, runs 13 yards for a touchdown. Atlanta's ahead 14-13. So Carolina then faces 4th and 1 at the Atlanta 34. Bridgewater keeps the ball on a zone read. Atlanta stuffs it, turnover on downs, and this is one of the patterns of the night. Carolina finishes the game 2 for 10 on 3rd down, 1 for 3 on 4th. And Atlanta drives again. Carolina keeps him out of the end zone again, but Koo hits another field goal as the half comes to a close, and Atlanta leads 16-14. Samuel has 5 touches for 55 yards in just the first half. He has both of Carolina's touchdowns. But Atlanta had the ball for 18 minutes, and the Falcons scored on 4 of 5 possessions. And the second half becomes uglier for Carolina. Atlanta adjusts their coverage. And Samuel explains afterward that the Falcons had shown more man coverage early, then began disguising things and mixing too high, cover 2, cover 3. Samuel disappears. Not completely, but almost. He had 2 second half catches for -1 yard. Carolina goes for another 4th and 1, this time at Atlanta's 42. Mike Davis gets stuffed. Atlanta turns that into Ku's 4th field goal, 19-14. Then Carolina produces one of the strangest plays of the night. 4th and 9 from its own 32-yard line. The Panthers line up to punt, and Jeremy Chinn, of all people, takes the direct snap. He sees the edge, 28 yards, first down. First down. The funny thing about Chinn being the guy on that play is Carolina's entire 2020 draft had been one giant defensive science experiment. They had 7 selections and 7 defensive players. Derek Brown, Yetur Gross-Matos, Jeremy Chinn, Troy Pride Jr., Kenny Robinson, Bravion Roy, Stanley Thomas Oliver. So Carolina became the first franchise in the common draft era, dating way back to 1967, to spend every one of its draft selections on a defensive player. Later, Matt Rule said they hadn't actually been planning to do that. It just kept happening. And here, halfway through the rookie season, one of those 7 defensive players converting 4th and 9 by running a fake punt 30 yards down the sideline. So yeah, football's weird. And a few plays later, it gets nasty. Bridgewater steps up in the pocket on 3rd down and 7. Dante Fowler sticks out a leg and trips him. As Bridgewater falls, Charles Harris comes in and hits him around the head. Flags everywhere. Harris gets ejected. Carolina's offensive linemen immediately confront Atlanta, but Bridgewater stays down. Eventually, he jogged off the field and entered the medical tent, and P.J. Walker came in. Carolina salvaged the possession with a Joey Slye field goal, 19-17. Bridgewater clears concussion protocol, although his neck is hurting, his back and his neck. He'll return, but Atlanta finally does what Atlanta spent the entire season failing to do. It took control late, 11 plays, 75 yards, nearly 7 minutes. Todd Gurley carries on the final 3 plays, 6 yards, 8 yards, 3 yards. Touchdown. Ku missed the extra point, and that kept Carolina technically alive. Atlanta 25, Carolina 17. Bridgewater comes back into the game with a little under 10 minutes left, and Carolina punts. Eventually, Atlanta punts 2, its first punt of the night, just over 3 minutes left in the game. So once again, exactly as it happened against Chicago and New Orleans, Carolina has the football late with a chance to change the ending. They start at their own 5. DJ Moore finally catches his first pass of the game. Later on 3rd and 18, Bridgewater finds Moore for 35 yards. Carolina crosses midfield. Maybe there's one more drive left, right? They reach the Atlanta 30. Bridgewater throws towards Moore near the end zone. Bleedy Rat Wilson drops off Samuel, reads the ball, picks it off. And about a minute's left. And that's it. Falcons 25, Panthers 17. Atlanta finally closed one out. Carolina lost its 3rd straight game. Curtis Samuel finished with 4 catches for 31 yards, 3 carries for 23 yards, a rushing touchdown, and a receiving touchdown. So 54 yards from scrimmage doesn't scream, this is a signature game. The 2 touchdowns do, though. It was the 3rd time in Samuel's career that he produced both a rushing and receiving touchdown in the same game. At the time, amongst wide receivers in the Super Bowl era, only Jerry Rice had done it more than Samuel. But afterwards, Samuel wasn't interested in his touchdowns. His basic message was individual production doesn't mean much to him in a loss. Whatever he'd done, he felt as though he hadn't done enough. He also acknowledged Atlanta's second half coverage changes, but refused to blame those for Carolina's problems. Execute better, That's it. And when he talked about Bridgewater taking that hit, Samuel described exactly what you'd expect the Carolina sideline to feel. That's their quarterback. Everybody had his back. And nobody liked seeing him hit that way. Bridgewater's message afterward was similar. Carolina had to learn how to finish. This couldn't become the identity of the team. Get the football late, have an opportunity, and keep coming up short. Matt Rule pointed out this was now... Hello, what's up?
Hey, how's it going? I was curious, did you get a package or envelope for an Andrew Adams within the last couple days?
Yes.
Awesome. Sorry, I forgot to check out.
Come in, sit down.
On eBay.
Nobody appreciated seeing him hit that way. Bridgewater's message afterward was similar. Carolina had to learn how to finish. This couldn't become the identity of the team. Right? Get the football late, have an opportunity, keep coming up short. Matt Rule pointed out that this was now the third straight week in which Carolina possessed the ball with a chance to win near the end. And he still believed he had a good football team, but eventually, close has to become victory. No problem. Across the hallway, the Falcons are taking about the exact opposite feeling. Raheem Morris was telling his defense somebody needed to end a game, not just survive the final drive. End it. Get a sack. Get an interception. Make the play yourself. Blady Ray Wilson did exactly that. Hey, Harley Treasure. For a team that spent September and October watching victories just evaporate, an interception with the game on the line felt like proof of concept. And Julio Jones provided the other major difference from the first meeting. 7 catches for 137 yards. So Atlanta finished with 401 yards, possessed the ball for more than 36 minutes. Still, even Jones wasn't particularly satisfied. The Falcons reached scoring territory over and over and over, and they had four field goals by Koo to show for it. So his point afterwards simple. With that much talent, Atlanta needs touchdowns. But neither team's about to rescue their season. Carolina went to Kansas City and came painfully close to upsetting the defending Super Bowl champs, but they lost 33-31. And the Panthers finished 5-11 in Matt Rule's first year. 8 of those 11 losses came by 8 points or less. That's probably the most accurate description of the 2020 COVID Panthers. They weren't terrible, but they weren't good. They're competitive, young, dangerous enough to bother you, and almost permanently just one play short. Atlanta finished even worse. They were 4-12. Raheem Morris went 4-7 as interim coach after Dan Quinn's firing, but Atlanta lost its final 5 games and hired Arthur Smith after the season. Curtis Samuel, this season became the best statistical season of his career. He finished 2020 with 77 catches for 851 yards, and he also ran 41 times for 200 yards. Those are all career highs. Add everything together, Samuel produced 1,051 yards from scrimmage. So Carolina actually had 4 different players break 1,000 scrimmage yards that year. DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, Mike Davis, Curtis Samuel. After the season, Samuel became a free agent and Washington gave him a 3-year deal for $34.5 million. But unfortunately, his first year there was almost completely lost due to injury. 5 games, 6 catches, 27 yards. But he came back. In 2022, Samuel caught 64 passes for 656 yards and ran for another 187. 2023, 62 catches, 613 yards, 4 touchdowns in the air, and 1 more on the ground. Then in 2024, Samuel went to Buffalo on a 3-year deal, reunited with Joe Brady. That's the offensive coordinator who unlocked him in Carolina, but it never clicked. He had just 31 catches for 253 yards, 2024. Then injuries limited him to 6 regular season games in 25. And Buffalo released him in March of 2026. So as I record this, Curtis Samuel's 30 years old and still waiting for what comes next. So if this is the end, he had a pretty good NFL career. Maybe not the one that people imagined when Carolina drafted him with the 40th overall pick out of Ohio State. But he had 9 seasons, more than 4,400 yards from scrimmage, 31 total offensive touchdowns. For one season in Carolina, Joe Brady figured out exactly who Curtis Samuel was. Not really a receiver and not really a running back, just a problem. Move him, put him in motion, hand it to him, throw it to him, whatever. Find the matchup. On October 29th, 2020, Atlanta spent one half trying to solve that problem. And by halftime, Curtis Samuel scored twice. But unfortunately for Carolina, the Falcons found the answer. And next time, we change sports. May 2nd, 2013. The defending Stanley Cup champion Los Angeles Kings are in St. Louis for Game 2 of the Western Conference quarterfinals. The Blues lead the series 1-0. The game is tied in the last minute. Yes, Harley, ask a question. One of the least likely players on the ice is about to score the first playoff goal of his entire career, with 50.4 seconds left. Blue 27, Barrett Jackman. I'm Kevin. Thanks for stopping by. I hope to see you again. And I'm sticking around for Harley here. Ask your question, Harley. Looking forward to it. So yeah, this channel is based on football, basketball, hockey, and baseball. Today's episode was about the Panthers. Of course, tomorrow's going to be about the St. Louis Blues. You still there, Harley? Harley? Harley Treasure, are you there? Are you there, Harley? I don't know. I'm partial to cats, Stegosaurus. I guess I like Panthers. So, well, it's good seeing you. Thanks for sticking around.